Hey friends, welcome to Dishing on Divorce on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, Podcasts, and TV. I'm your host, Lisa Lisser, CEO and founder of LZL Coaching, a boutique coaching firm focused on divorce, relationships, and life transitions. As a recovering lawyer, a current educator, author, spiritual counselor, and divorce coach who is committed to transforming the divorce experience for everyone involved, think of me as your guide on the side, emotionally, strategically, and with an eye toward your future. You don't have to walk this mess alone. We'll do it together. Knowing you have support is not always easy to process. We don't always give ourselves permission to ask for help. We think we're supposed to know everything, even when we've never done something before. As a retired commercial litigator with no family law experience, it didn't matter that I had no professional experience with divorce. I felt like I was supposed to know how to do everything, but I didn't. I didn't know how to ask questions or even who to ask because I was often afraid to call my lawyer about something I thought I was supposed to know, and because I knew it would cost money. At the time, I never even heard of divorce coaching and barely knew anything about mediation. I certainly hadn't heard of certified divorce financial advisors. And our financial situation, I was naive and ignorant about it in a lot of ways. And as I often share, my role in our family as stay-at-home mom included personal shopper, cook, driver, planner, social director, educational advisor, medical supervisor, house manager, and philanthropic leader. But what it didn't include was financial advisor. That role was left to my husband. And when I had questions, he brushed them aside or said I didn't need to know. And he made decisions without telling me. Sadly, I accepted that, but I didn't feel like I had a choice. And in ways, it was kind of easier to not be responsible for the financial life of our family. That changed when divorce entered our story. Had I taken the time to reflect on my financial status during the marriage, I would have felt more secure going into the divorce. Money is power, and I felt like I had none. But that doesn't have to be the case. We all have the right and responsibility to ourselves to understand our financial picture. And we can do it in a way that's aligned with our values and our hearts. Money doesn't have to be a cold subject. It should be a warm, mindful subject. Now, that may be a new concept for some of us, but it's real. When we focus on our purpose and how it aligns with our values, we can find the financial professionals who will guide us through divorce and beyond. And that brings me to today's guest, Melissa Murphy Pavone. Melissa and I met through various platforms, but it wasn't until we connected in person at the New York State Council of Divorce Mediators that we knew we had a common theme. We instantly connected. Melissa is the founder of Mindful Divorce Partners. She helps individuals and couples navigate divorce with clarity, confidence, and compassion. As a certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst, Melissa brings a rare blend of financial expertise and emotional intelligence to one of life's most challenging transitions. So welcome, Melissa, to Dishing on Divorce.
Thanks so much for having me, Lisa. I'm honored to be here today.
It's such a pleasure for you to be here. And as I mentioned to you earlier behind the scenes or backstage, I'm really leaning into soul this month and what it means to be connected back to your soul when you're having to make all these hard decisions. So that will be a focus. You'll see how we weave that all in. But I want to start with the question I always start with, which is, tell us your story and how did it lead for you getting into this work?
Yeah. So I always say my why is my mom. And I'm a child of divorce. And during her divorce, she made a lot of decisions with her heart and not her head. And so I have made it my mission to really be that financial ally for people who were not the CFO of the family, right? You talked about how your ex really handled the family finances, and they were probably like the big picture finances, right? But you did a lot of the day-to-day
Oh, yeah.
spending and shopping and, balancing the checkbook and all that good stuff. But the big decisions are left to the CFO of the family, and that's, it's not always husband, it's not always wife, but the non-CFO, although they're very in the trenches, are disconnected from those big long-term financial decisions. So, and it's when you're going through divorce, you're really trying to just get through the day. You're not really able to think clearly through the trenches of what these decisions that you're making today, how they're going to impact you 5, 10, 20 years down the line. So I want to be that kind of voice of reason. I have the ability to zoom out and look at it from a different lens and kind of go over the positives, the negatives, and the tax consequences of all of these choices and really shed light. And my job is really to educate and empower, to make sure that you know what you're agreeing to and how this will impact your future and your family's future. And perhaps there's a more creative solution that we can come up with together that meets the family's needs. But I'm a big proponent of empowerment. And it's hard to trust people when you're going through divorce because oftentimes trust has been taken away, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard, but I want to be that financial ally who is, emotionally intelligent, to know that this is, probably the lowest of lows in your life, but to help rebuild.
Yeah. That's huge. And you said there was so much packed into that answer. So I want to dig into a couple of the things.
Yeah.
One of the things you said was that you need to plan 5, 10, 20 years ahead. And what I find is that my clients are stuck into tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Like, where am I going to live? And do I have to move right away? Like, does one of us have to leave the house as soon as I say I want a divorce? Or he told me he wants a divorce. She told me she wants a divorce. Like, where do I have to go? So people are in the instant, urgent, fight, flight, freeze mode. But you are helping them say, no, let's look a little bit longer term.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's really important. And, oftentimes people, say, should you be the first phone call? And finance plays, a big role in divorce. But I'm a big proponent of the team approach. And I always think that a divorce coach or mental health professional should be the first phone call because you need to be emotionally ready. I always say there's not a straight line, right? From you wake up one morning and saying, hey, I'm not happy, to I'm going to get divorced. It's a roller coaster, of emotions, of finances, of people, of, people's opinions and your own, kind of back and forth game that you play with yourself. So I'm very happy to work with coaches like you to be able to support clients who are in need because you can provide the emotional support. I can provide the financial clarity, and together we can, suggest a mediator or attorney that will work best for them and their family. And if everyone works cohesively as a team, it's a much better client experience.
Yeah, it's a much better family experience.
Yeah.
Because, many of my clients have kids. And they're thinking about the kids and they're worried about the impact on the kids. And they feel like they don't want to be the one to break up the family. And that's where, then they take the finances and look at the finances as like from a place of brokenness.
Yeah.
And when they can work with a team and we can start to develop some clarity and I can direct them to you so that you can do your work in the area that I don't have the expertise. But my expertise is finding the right professionals. That's what I always say. I'm like the matchmaker because, my job is to be even more like the primary care physician. Like I look at the whole person and I figure out who are the professionals you need right now. Like you might not need the lawyer first. In fact, most of the time, I don't believe that my clients do.
I agree.
I want them to think about a lot of things first before, because they don't know the right questions to ask until they have a little knowledge. And that's why directing them to the financial professional is, for me, often the first step. What I am so impressed with your business is that you call your business Mindful Divorce Partners. So first of all, how did you choose that name? Like what about that resonated with you that you felt would resonate with your clients?
Yeah, I really, mindfulness has been a big part of my life and growth process and the work that I've done on myself. And I attribute it to my health and wellness coach, Christine Jensen. And when I was establishing my financial planning practice, I called it Mindful Financial Partners. And I came from a lot of big banks and wirehouses, in terms of like financial planning firms that I've worked with throughout my career. And they all very much focused on the balance sheet, right? There was account minimums, there was product pushing and sales, and it just felt icky and not aligned with who I was as a person. And I care more about the person than how much their balance sheet is. And it was very much more relationship based. So I wanted to tie that into the company that I created that a lot of firms lack due to, kind of the financial culture. And so when I developed Mindful Divorce Partners, I wanted to keep the name the same because divorce shouldn't just be a knee-jerk reaction. And it is a big transition in somebody's life and oftentimes defining moments. And so I want people to really think about it differently as not the end, but a new beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that if you really feel supported by the professionals, and I like to talk about how like when you get married, there is a bridal party and a bachelorette party and, like all these celebrations and people around you supporting you. You need to do that for yourself when you're getting divorced and build that network of people. So you feel supported on the other side of this. And I think that's where the mindfulness comes in, to pause and to really reflect and to find out what is most important. There's a lot of stuff, right? On the internet, it's great, but oftentimes somebody else's divorce, no two divorces look the same. So
Right.
no two settlements should look the same. And I want to be part of the movement to really change the divorce landscape, to be able to work with divorce coaches like you and amicably focused mediators and attorneys and collaboratively trained professionals so that we don't have to go to court and a judge doesn't decide the future of your family, but you and your spouse get to decide what works best for the family. And I think that together we can have that impact on the divorce landscape.
Yeah, I am 100% on board with that. I mean, this is your life. It's so much better if you get to decide. And so many people are in it for the fight. Like once that decision is made, once someone calls the marriage and says it's time for divorce, people take their corners.
Yeah.
And what we try to do is say, okay, let's relax, let's breathe a little, and let's figure out what's going to be the most financially feasible way for you to go forward, preserving your assets instead of spending them on the fight. And that's also a reason why we do the work we do, because we believe that it's important to not waste the money on the motions and the fighting. But what I know from my experience and what I've found in some of my clients is that they have a relationship with the fight. It's not just the relationship with their partner. It's the relationship with the conflict. And sometimes letting go of that relationship with the conflict has a problem letting go a relationship with their identity, right?
Yeah.
Their identity is the conflict. And I see you have something you want to share there.
Well, I just think it's sometimes that's somebody's normal, right? Like that constant bickering or battling or disagreement or fighting, that sometimes is somebody's normal. And so that's all they know. And so
Right.
for, you and I to come in looking at it through a different lens, we see that there's another path. I was on with a client this week and they're agreed to sell their marital home and they're fighting over who's going to list the house, like who's the listing agent. And I talked to both couples and both the husband and wife, and I said, listen, I have no allegiance, to this person. I didn't find them, but who cares?
Yeah.
like let's just get somebody to sell the house, or let's get two people to sell the house. But if you go to your attorney and that attorney goes to their attorney and then their attorney goes back to you, this conversation is going to cost over $1,000. Like, can we just make it now and save everybody like time, money, and aggravation? Because the longer this stalls, like the longer this takes, the more expensive it's going to be and the less time the house is on the market. So like the clock is ticking. And so I know exactly what you mean by sometimes it's just like they have to fight. And sometimes I advise my clients, like, it's not worth the squeeze, right? It's just not worth it. Like, we have to compromise on certain things. Other things I will be a stickler on. But
Right.
other things I'm like, this is not going to move the needle. Like, let's just bow out gracefully so that we can like take a step forward.
Yeah. And how do you relate that, which is so vital to this process that you and I both believe in, but how do you like frame that in the mindfulness, right? In the like, or I think of it sometimes as like, let's be thoughtful. Let's really
Yeah.
think this through. That mindfulness is not just about meditation, it's about more.
Oh, absolutely. And I try to say like, okay, let's play the pros cons. You're like, what are the costs? Like if it's your real estate agent, great, it's this. However, your ex, can battle this out or blame the price on this, right? If it's his real estate agent, we're still going to sell the house. He can't blame us, if the house doesn't get sold at a certain amount of time, or maybe his real estate agent will say, let's, start cleaning out the house and we'll make some motion. So then when we kind of play that game of like pros and cons, especially when there's dollar amounts associated with it, then we start to like the emotion starts fading and the logic starts kicking in. And that's really my goal, right? To create that clarity, to create that pause, because it's easy to have that knee-jerk reaction to just like no fight,
Because those are the neural pathways that have existed in
forever.
your relationship. And so to stop going down that path is a challenge because that's the easy way. That's the wider neural pathway.
Yeah.
But what you do is help them carve a different path and just
Yeah.
walk a different way, which is hard. It's really hard. It's like cutting a new path with a machete. It's so hard. But it's the right way to go. Sometimes going off the beaten path is the right step in your journey. And that is a mindful way to approach it. So your clients are certainly well served. We're at break time. So we're going to just take a quick 30-second break and have a word from our host. And we're back with Melissa Murphy Pavone. Today's topic is mindfulness in divorce, a financial perspective. So we've been talking about how do we shift from focusing on the fight to focusing on what really matters, like what your values are. You mentioned that finances can be one of the most triggering parts of a divorce. How do you help your clients, stay grounded when that money anxiety shows up?
Yeah, it's really hard. And money touches every part of our lives. And we all come into marriages with different money stories, right? And our different relationships with money. And oftentimes we don't break that down with our partners. And so I think that's, sometimes where things start to go awry. But money, you know, it means different things to different people. It could be about our safety, our sense of identity, sometimes even our self worth, right, is tied to that. And I think you start by validating the fear and acknowledging that it is triggering, right? So not to just to be like, hey, I can't do this, or, this is not my cup of tea, but allow yourself to be fearful, because it isn't everyone's cup of tea, and it is intimidating, and it does, oftentimes cause anxiety. I get phone calls probably at least once a week just saying, like, can you help me fill out my financial affidavit? And it's, I don't think the attorneys really understand how overwhelming that stack of paperwork is. And it's written pretty, in pretty plain English, but it's so intimidating. And I help people walk through, like, I will do a limited scope, an hourly consultation where I will just help walk you through. And sometimes the conversation is easier, right, than just like, if you feel like you're filling out a test and you're not prepared, right? You don't know the study materials,
Right.
But I think that once we start having that conversation and trust is built, and I get to know what's important to them, and I think about it and I display it in a way that it's not just money, right? It's time. And our time is our most valuable asset. And we're given limited time. We can always make more money, right? It's hard when we have to write that check, whether it's to buy someone out of the house or equalize retirement or whatever, or support payments. It's hard to write that check. And I understand that. But you think about what you're getting in return, and you kind of have that mindset shift of,
Right.
hey, I now have control over my finances, and that alone can be debilitating, right? But to be able to educate someone along the way, and oftentimes there's so much shame in it that people are like, hey, I should have known better. I shouldn't have given, my spouse all the power. I should have been, more aware of this. And that doesn't get us anywhere, right? It's in the past. We all, wish we kind of handled things differently, but we're going to move forward from this part and have that financial ally and create a safe space to say, what does this mean? What is this word? What is the difference? Explain it to me in layman's terms. And that once you kind of get over that initial the fear, and you start to see your financial picture, I think the panic starts to soften, and it becomes less about like, okay, what do I have to do next? And it shifts to become more, here's what I'm going to do, or what if I do this? And you start to get that power and that momentum. And that's what really energizes me, because I see that kind of light bulb go off to be like, hey, I'm going to be okay. Like, I can do a little bit more for my retirement account, or, hey, I'm going to put this in my emergency fund. And that's where I think the magic really happens.
Yeah, no, I think that you're 100% right on that, because it's about the clarity, and sometimes the fear makes us cloudy, and it kind of it's kind of like the monster in the background, the fear, like that's eating up our confidence. And when we find a professional who can help us turn on the light and say, there's no monsters under the bed. Let's like check. We're going to check, and we're going to go through your financial, CIS in New Jersey, and it's a different document in New York, but the financial statement you have to give to the court to say, this is my balance sheet, this is my budget. It's terrifying. In New Jersey, it's 11 pages long. So just the idea that it's an 11-page long document makes people say, I can't do this now. I'm not going to do this now. I don't want to look at it. It's too hard. And having someone who says, I can walk you through it. I can help you figure out where to look to get the right answers. And you are a capable person. You're going to be able to do this. You can do hard things. Just that kind of support is enough to let people quiet the monster. And that trigger gets a little less every time they successfully fill out one line item on that form. For me, it was the pharmacy. Like, what do you get at the pharmacy on average every month? What's your budget? And like, I had no idea because I never thought about what I got when I went to CVS, right? That wasn't the thing. But when you have to break things down into little tiny bits and then sort of like share it, admit it, maybe you think you spend too much here or spend too much there. But all of that is part of what makes this hard. So, Melissa, are you there? I think we're having a little technical difficulty, but let's see if Cece can get us all back on board. And if not, then what I will share is a story about one of my clients who really was struggling to figure out her financial situation, and especially with the case information statement, which is that budget and those financial asset balance sheet. Now, for me, as you can tell by my language, it's not something that is part of my general vocabulary. But what we did was we helped her understand that through her value system, she could say, I know how to do this. I do hard things. I'm just really tired and I don't want to have to do this work, because that's a big piece of the fear. And when people do the work, then they find that they've made that leap. They've become confident. And so that's where we find the mindfulness. And you're back. Welcome back.
I'm back. Total lights off, power surge, everything just went blank.
Oh my goodness, but you're back. And I was just filling some time here, sharing with the audience how people feel so afraid when they look at their balance sheet because they feel like they don't really know how to even approach it. That's not their identity. And your hand-holding through the process is something that really gives them the confidence that once they fill out, even half of a page, they know that they could fill out the next half of a page. So let me ask you a question. We can get in deep now that you're back. I was a little panicked there. Just saying. So
sorry.
No, it happens. Can you share a story or an example of where a client's financial awareness during divorce changed their life for the better? I'm sure you have lots of these. Yeah.
I do. I have one that was not so great, and I kind of came in late to the picture, but I often tell people this story. And it has saved a lot of other people, and it kind of ties into something that you and I have talked about a lot is, the marital home being, the biggest asset. So in this one case, I was brought in just to do post-divorce financial help with like cash flow. So the divorce was done. I wasn't a part of it. She had her settlement. Somebody recommended her to me. And so I said, sure, come in, I'll help you on the post-divorce. And I think that's really important that people don't understand that there's like a couple different parts of where a CDFA can help. It's, hey, I'm quietly thinking about divorce and I want to become financially clear and, have that clarity to kind of do it like before I'm in, divorce proceedings. And then it's while you're in it, a CDFA can be a financial neutral. And if you're in mediation or collaborative, can help the couple together. And I think that's really powerful because you guys are sharing the same financial document. So if you're sharing the same financial, we can kind of look at it as a puzzle piece of, hey, here is the income, here are the assets. How do we divide this that works best for our family? And that's really powerful to have somebody there helping figure that out when everyone is amicable. Other times I'm brought in as a financial advocate for the non-CFO spouse who's saying, hey, I don't know what any of these statements mean, what any of these numbers mean. I've been in the dark this whole time. I don't trust him. I think I'm, him or her. I might get screwed. Please help me. And so there's that. And then there's that, hey, I'm divorced and now I have to rebuild, right? We divided what we divided. I'm getting this support or I'm paying this support, but like, how do I now move on? Because two of us and with two incomes, and now it's just one of us, but our expenses are high. And how do we navigate kids going off to college and, buying that second home and not quite at retirement and the cost of healthcare? And there's all these different variables. So in this case, I was brought on to do the post-divorce transition. And this lady came to me and I said, all right, show me what you have. Let's go over the whole story. And she's like, I didn't have enough income to buy out my spouse in the house. So I forewent alimony. So I said, okay.
Wow.
And I just kind of like paused there and I was like, I don't have a very good poker face. So I was like, okay. I was like, all right, how are we going to pay for these taxes on Long Island? And she was like, oh, well, I have this account, child support, and I have this account. I'm like, but child support, your son is about to go to college, so we don't have that for that much longer. Then that goes towards, like room and board. And all right, what about this account? I looked at the account. It's an IRA. And I said,
Okay.
you can't touch this until you're 59 and a half without penalty. And she kind of just like looked at me like a deer in headlights. And I said, and this money isn't taxable. And so she ended up having to sell the house later. I helped her as much as I can, but she was, very mad, not at me, but had the attorneys, right, attorneys that advised her to get to this point. And she ended up having to sell the house. And now she sold the house and it had a huge capital gain in it, like in the house, because they bought it low, and she had to deal with the selling costs, the moving costs, fixing it up, getting it to code, selling it, and then she had to pay capital gains because she only had a $250,000 exclusion because she was no longer married. And she had to dip into her retirement account to help like pay for the things to get the house sold. And so there was taxable issues there. And it was a terrible situation. And I try to tell people that story, not to scare them, but to say like, hey, we have to think about it. I know the house is such an emotional piece of the puzzle, and it's very different, right? We look at assets. If you have a stock account and it's, has $300,000 in it, and then you have a house with $300,000 worth of equity, you're looking at these two things differently because you didn't have Christmas with your stock account, right? Like that's just kind of like paper. It's not personable, but there's memories there. And I get that. And a life built and, a basement filled with photo albums, like there's a lot there to unpack emotionally and physically. So I think that is always a really hard conversation. And I'm very honest with people. And sometimes people are like, well, I'm going to stay in the house. Can you let me stay in the house? And I'm like, listen, I'm going to give you the information and you can do what you want with it. But I'm going to be honest because that is my job. And I can run the numbers, but I do not want you to be house poor,
and that's actually really a big place where my work comes in. To say, okay, so this is what you want, but what do you want more, right? Like, do you want financial viability and the openness for your future, or do you want to hold on to the memories? Because the house also, with all its memories, can be a burden to moving forward because you can't emotionally let go. And, but at the same time, for some people, the house is the thing. That's the symbol for them. That's all they know. And they want that. And for other people, it's even like whoever gets the house wins. right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in divorce. And so what you do is say, let's take the competition out and let's just look at you and your financial future. And that helps them be mindful too. Like
Yeah.
they can reconnect with their soul and let go of the conflict, right? That's what that's about.
Yeah. And a lot of times I run the scenarios and we kind of say, all right, this is what happens if we buy one person out. This is what happens if we sell. This is what happens if we co-own and then have a delayed sale.
Yeah,
Um, and that is a really good option that people don't know
I love
about.
that option. I love
I
that
know.
option.
And it really works well if the couple is amicable and really putting the children first, because then there's buy-in from both sides, but you have to have buy-in from both sides. And it's looking at it from like, let's play the what if game. Okay, the boiler breaks. If the boiler breaks and you own this house on your own, where are we getting 10 grand
Right,
to
right.
fix the boiler, right? Like, and then, okay, like we're going to sell it, but we need, and we play this game like, all right, now the kids are moved out. Now you have a 4,000 square foot house and you're by yourself. Like, and who's cutting the grass,
Right.
like.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And all of those things are part of your list of mindfulness, right? Like it's not like I got to go to yoga class. It's more like I've got to really think about this in an intentional way that will give me the space to take care of myself. Like you may
Yeah,
think you're taking care of yourself in one way, but you need a little clarity on that. So
I
we are
agree.
getting close to the
Okay.
very end. So I'm sorry to say, because this is such a great conversation, but let's leave the audience with like one small mindful financial step someone can take today if they're just starting to think about divorce.
I think it's really just to start gathering the financial documents that you need. And that's harder than it sounds, because back in the day you could just go to the mailbox and get it, but now everything is online and there's two-factor authentication, so it's really hard to get hold of these things. But your tax returns, your bank statements, your retirement accounts, and to start kind of just gathering the documents. And I would have a free consultation with the CDFA. Oftentimes my colleagues and I will give free consultations and they'll tell you exactly what you kind of need to look for, what you need. And it's kind of like planting the seeds for your future and just gaining the knowledge and the power. And there's a way to do it peacefully, but you need to
Yeah.
know what those numbers are. And it's your assets, what you have, your liabilities, what you
Right.
owe.
So what I would say, like the mindful steps you can take is give yourself a runway, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to do everything at once, right?
No.
But let's say you block off some time, you have an hour today. Today you're gonna figure out where all of your credit cards are.
Yeah.
How do you get the balance sheets on those? How do you get the bills and the statements? So maybe that's day one. And day two, you're like, how many banks are you associated with? And like day three, okay, we own the house, we have a mortgage. Where do I get that information? So that
Yeah.
each day you give yourself a different task. And it could be each week, but you could decide. But if you break that into small bits of action steps,
Yeah.
then you're going to mindfully go forward. And when you see that you have like a pile of information, you're going to recognize that you could do this.
Yeah.
And that's what's powerful. So thank you so much, Melissa, for coming
Thank
on
you so
today.
much for having me. It was a pleasure. I love chatting with you, Lisa.
It's so great. Thank you. I love chatting with you too. Can you please share with my audience how they can find you?
Absolutely. My company is called Mindful Divorce Partners. You can email me at Melissa, Melissa, at mindfuldivorcepartners.com. I offer complimentary consultations. If you'd like to work with somebody in person and we're not local, I'm happy to refer you to another CDFA. I offer a financial clarity package, which is if you're quietly thinking of divorce, it's kind of a 3-hour gathering your documents, analyzing things before you take that next step. And that gives you some financial clarity and some education and empowerment before you make the next move.
That's great. Thank you so much, Melissa. And it's so important that financial clarity package can be the thing that helps you get over the hump of making a decision. And it's such a great value. For my audience, thank you for joining us today. I'm Lisa Lisser. You can reach me at lisa@lzlcoaching.com, and the website is lzlcoaching.com. I offer free 30-minute consults for people thinking about it, people stuck in the middle, and for co-parents who are really struggling. So with that, thank you, and we'll see you next time on Dishing on Divorce.